Well, good morning, everybody. It's Real Estate Radio on Bob FM. I'm John Engen. We have our cast of players, but always we want to introduce them to you just in case you haven't heard the program yet.
Absolutely. This is Jamie Borden with the Borden Real Estate Team in TCI Realty. Been licensed for 12 years. Absolutely love helping people buy and sell real estate and navigating the treacherous waters that can be making a home purchase or sale.
Good morning. I'm Steve Rice with Marketplace Home Mortgage. I've been a mortgage lender for about 25 years. And I'm still one of the guys that likes to actually meet with people, talk with people, and have a conversation about how to learn how to borrow money the correct way.
Good morning, and I'm Nick Dreher with Liberty Title, your title and closing company of choice here in the Twin Cities with 19 locations to serve your title and closing needs.
Well, normally we start with a bit of a real estate minute, but we're going to forego that just for a second. We got something else to talk about this morning I think you're going to like.
Yes. MPFHeroes.com is a featured, highlighted program that we have. All three of the members here, Nick, Steve, and myself, are part of MPFHeroes.com. And we give back personally. The Borden Real Estate Team gives back 25% of our real estate commissions to our active and retired military, police, and fire rescue heroes in uniform at the real estate closing. Marketplace Home Mortgage and Liberty Title also give discounts in regards to our MPF Heroes as well. If you are looking or know somebody that's looking to buy or sell, now use a team of trusted professionals who will not only do an amazing job for you, but also want to show our appreciation and honor you as a way of saying thank you so much for your service and sacrifice. So for more information, please visit www.mpfheroes.com.
Mm-hmm. It's an excellent opportunity for you. I just love the fact that you guys do this.
Mm-hmm. It's the least we can do to give back for the people that put so many things on the line for us day in and day out. There was a great article in the paper about a week or so ago talking about just the police officers and the things that they do on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it's same with the firefighters and everybody involved in our military. So it's the least we can do.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no guarantees in this life of how many days we have left. Yeah. That's very apparent, especially in the recent time here, speaking with some of the guys here. And we just don't know. And the thing is, we work every single day, and we can get in our cars, and we may not make it back. But the thing is, there's a good chance that we're going to. Mm-hmm. These police officers, these military veterans, and people that are running into burning buildings to save people, they don't know if they're going to make it home. And so that's why we started the program, and that's why we want to give back.
Let's give that contact information for that right away again.
Yeah, www.mpfheroes.com.
Okay, you can find out more. Steve, I wanted to just touch base with you real quick and ask how our rates are going. I bet we're 12-15% now. Is that correct?
Not quite.
By now.
No, it was a very, last Friday was a very interesting day. A lot of mixed economic news there. Mm-hmm. Seems to be two diverse camps, and it all relates to unemployment numbers. The current administration is quoting unemployment numbers at a certain abnormally low range, where the financial market is revising those numbers upward, and that's causing a lot of turmoil in the market. Overall, 30-year fixed rates are still below 4%, but it still appears that we're kind of at the bottom of that trough. So I'm just telling everybody, if you're floating the market expecting another big dip in rates, maybe we've hit the bottom, might want to start moving on. We don't see any big upward pressures coming along, but just a lot of interesting news that I think is going to continue. A lot of scares in the market. We're going to see some ups and downs, but overall, it's still an incredibly good time to get a mortgage.
I think I got a taste of how the inventory situation is going on these days. I got a call from a nationally known real estate outfit.
Oh.
And the guy said, he said, hello, my name is so-and-so. You interested in selling your house?
Wow.
And, I thought, I've never received one of those before. Yeah. Is that standard operating procedure?
What'd you tell them?
Well, for $1.5 million, I'm willing to take a go on it. But,
yeah, John, are you looking at John? No.
Look at this now. It's like vultures on a body.
That's right.
But let's get them pre-qualified first.
Is that a kind of a natural thing when you get into a thin market like this?
It's a common practice for a lot of agents that are full-time. The part-time agents that are out there, they've got other things to worry about. They help their family and friends. But people that practice this, and this is all they do every single day, we got to fill our days with something, right? So besides marketing our listings and showing buyers homes, so we pick up the phone sometimes and we'll call, canceled and expired listings, and and there's people that'll pick up these.
And John, this was somebody that you don't know. You've never dealt with them.
You know, I've searched my memory banks now. Do I recognize that name? I can't even tell you what the name was. But I asked, have I ever done business with you guys before? Oh no.
Did you ask if your wife had inquired on some of their listings? I understand she kind of likes
Now,
properties.
see, now you just complicated this thing a little bit more. Now, why did you do that?
You might have signed up for a free drawing or something.
There is more to the story there, but a lot of agents will buy call lists.
Okay.
And then they'll call random people, and that's telemarketing.
Well, and depending on where the market is too, depending on the price range where we're at right now, the single family first time home buyer price is right there. So if you're in that market, then absolutely, let's make a phone call and see who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate.
Absolutely. Fine.
Well, let's kind of get into our topic of the day. And I want to start with Daniel. Daniel is from St. Michael. He let us know that his parents were trying to sell their house, and when they thought they had sold it, they had an inspection. The person who did the inspection kind of wrote up a whole bunch of stuff, and it kind of opens up a broader topic of conversation because we're going to kind of aim at the no-nos of real estate situation. But let's start right here, and let's start giving Daniel a little bit of a hand.
I had a great conversation with Daniel on the phone, and that specific situation, like he'd said, John, was that his parents had sold their house, and they actually had moved on to find another house because their house was sold subject to an inspection. And they located a property, wrote an offer on that property. This is going to be the retirement and townhome. And what ended up happening is they got that one under contract, and then all of a sudden the inspection went south on their house that they were selling. So this is a fear that a lot of people have, to sell it, to find a new home that you love, that you're going to retire to, and then the next thing you know, have everything just fall apart in the 11th hour. And, what can we do? Daniel's like, no, what can I do? No, I want to go after these guys. And I'm so upset at what's happening here. And so I said, his parents were the ones that were working with the realtor, and he was kind of a bystander, and he was trying to help his parents out. And so I said, well, first and foremost, your parents have really got to talk to their agent and make sure that they're doing everything within their power to try to either hold things together or let's create a new sense of direction in which we're going. And I said, the fact of the matter is they have every right to cancel. They don't even have to give you a reason. But they have the right to cancel depending on how they've written their contract. So I said, the best thing that you can do in this specific situation is to send over the cancellation, get that house back on the market because inventory is so low, you're probably going to resell it relatively soon. The issue, though, is that they sent over the buyer's agent that is now backing out of the contract. They sent over the inspection report, and everything that was on that inspection report now becomes material fact, and they must disclose that information to future buyers. So that was kind of salt to the wound a little bit. And so I said, best thing you can do, quick fix those things that are on the report, get it back on the market, and get her sold. So,
wow.
It was a tough situation.
Yeah.
It really
and I've
was.
heard mixed answers, and I don't know the answer to this, but are those sellers now bound to give that copy of that inspection to all potential new buyers?
They don't necessarily have to give the inspection, but they need to disclose the facts that were on that inspection.
Right. That's what do they? That's kind of what I've heard. The mix. Do they have to give them the entire inspection, or just note, here's what's happened and here's what I've done to correct?
If there were certain things that could affect the material fact, if it's a material fact that could affect the useful enjoyment for future buyers, then they need to disclose that information. And even more so, we as agents have even more of a disclosure requirement from the Commerce Department, and we need to disclose absolutely everything. We can't just open up a can of worms and kind of keep it partially closed. You got to blow the whole lid off.
And that's why I've heard mixed. Sometimes just give. But here's the inspection, here's the things that I've done, receipts or whatever, and we've fixed and corrected all issues, whether you define that as a material fact or not.
Right.
Well, and the hard part, and we've talked about this before on the show, is the fact that a good inspector is absolutely key. The issue is that every home, even new homes, have issues. Homes that have been lived in have idiosyncrasies that are, one outlet doesn't work. If you're going to let that ruin your transaction over a 99-cent fix, then both your real estate agent and your inspector they're not doing the best job for you.
Yeah.
Every home has that issue. Is it going to be perfect? No. But is it going to be livable, and is it going to affect your useful enjoyment? No. So don't, a lot of people get really bent out of shape. If it's not a foundation issue or a significant mechanical issue or another structural issue, everything else can be fixed. And if you're buying an existing home, expect that there's going to be something you're going to have to do. That's what buying a home is.
Well, guys, here's what we'll do. We're going to keep this conversation going. We're going to address some of the bigger issues as well, some of the no-nos that when you get into the buying and selling of home, mostly the selling of a home. And we'll do it when we get back here in Real Estate Radio on Bob FM.
The Borden Real Estate Team with TCI Realty of Minnesota believes strongly in supporting and honoring those who have chosen to serve their country and community. It is with utmost gratitude that they started MPFHeroes.com, where they give back 25% of their commission to all active or retired military, police, and fire rescue heroes in uniform. For more information about this program, visit www.mpfheroes.com. That's www.mpfheroes.com.
Liberty Title has over 40 years' experience in real estate law and has quickly become a leader in the title community, providing excellent title service to Minnesota real estate agents, lenders, attorneys, corporations, and homeowners. Their knowledgeable staff of dedicated professionals coordinate residential and commercial real estate transactions with the highest degree of efficiency and customer service. When it comes to title work, there's only one place to turn: Liberty Title. Find us on the web at libertytitleinc.us.
Back to Real Estate Radio on Bob FM. We are getting into the conversation here, talking about some of the things you do not want to do. And it reminds me of a house that was for sale in our neighborhood. Now, as you guys know, I've told you the story about my wife. Any one of you should hire her. She knows more about the business than you do anyway.
She probably
does. To be
does.
a guest on our show.
I should,
sometime.
because she can
be
tell you
great.
every house that's for sale in the 5-state area, I think, and all the ins and outs. But there was a house by our house that was for sale, and she said, it's never going to sell. It's way too overpriced. And I thought, how do you know? You're not a real estate agent. You don't go into that type of thing. No, she said, I guarantee you that sign's coming down because it's way too overpriced. Item number one, don't overprice your home.
Right. Yeah, don't overprice your house. It's a common mistake that a lot of sellers want to make, and they don't intentionally make that mistake. But I think people kind of correlate that to stuff you list on eBay. You know, you got something to sell on eBay. You have a specific price point. If you can't get it, you drop your price. I'm not sure on eBay is there like a days on market. How many times have you tried to sell this thing? I don't think there is.
No.
In real estate, it's completely different because when you overprice a home and play that chase your tail strategy and you reduce, well, what happens is the entire industry, not to mention the buyers that are out there, see when you listed it, when you reduced it, how much you reduced it by, and they see that nobody's interested in it. And so what happens when you finally get down to a price point that buyers find acceptable, they start questioning themselves or start questioning, well, should I offer asking price? Why would I? This house has been on the market for 3 or 4 months. So by the time you get down to where you should have started to begin with, buyers are now wanting to take you down even further on price, and which ultimately ends up in a net result less to the seller.
Well, yeah, I think what happens too is that we can no longer, the transparency features of our industry have become so that people, you really can't confuse them. In the past, you'd say, well, it's been on the market for some time. That they can go out and see on multiple websites how long it's been on and where they started the price at. And then when that person comes to the realtor and says, Jamie, I know this has been on a certain amount of time. What we want to do is we want to proceed like this. You're absolutely right. Always price the house effectively within where the market is, and you're going to have your best response. You have an opportunity actually priced appropriately in a market like this to go into multiple offers by pricing it as close to the market as possible and going into multiples and receiving more money that way.
And Jamie, isn't that a key part of doing the market analysis is when you're meeting with the homeowner, meet with them at the house, show them your data, show them your research. Again, I'm always amazed when I'm talking to clients that have a home to sell and they want to look to get pre-qualified to buy a house, and I ask them, what's the experience been like if you've been with a realtor that's going to list your home? And they're like, well, we talked a little bit on the phone. They stopped out for about a half hour, and they say listed at this. And I'm looking at them like, do you know what the competition is? If you're going to sell your house for $200,000, what's the competition in your neighborhood? Doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 markets away. And sometimes they look at me like I'm from outer space. Like, why? You mean somebody should have done that for me? And
Right.
it just seems like such a logical thing in my mind, but I guess it doesn't happen a lot.
Well, I guess I can't speak for other agents. My mentality when I'm walking into a market analysis is, one, let's determine what the value is. Let's look at your finishes, your square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, comparative to the market, what's currently active, pending, sold. Has there been properties that have canceled, expired because they were overpriced? Using that information to...
But you're going to have that conversation with them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even more important than that, too, I think, well, maybe it's equally as important, I should say, is walking through the inside and the outside of the home to determine if there's going to be any issues as it relates to FHA financing, VA financing, because what we don't want to do is put a product out there and limit the amount of buyers that can buy that specific home, because there are some buyers, Steve, that can only qualify, for instance, for FHA financing.
Right. Well, let's turn this coin over and talk about the underpriced home.
We've got colleagues in the industry that they have their specific business standard. They will underprice a home by 5 or 10%.
Okay.
So not underpricing the home or falling for that trap.
Why? Tell me why they would do that.
Okay, so there is a desired price point that a seller is willing to sell a house for. And there's a specific price point that a buyer is willing to pay for that house, and that may overlap. So, for instance, say a seller will sell a house between $190 and $200, or anything above $190 he'd sell it for. Someone came in at $250, he'd obviously sell it for $250 if it appraised. So that range for the seller, say, is $190,000 to $200,000, and say that buyer is willing to pay $185,000 to $195,000. Now, if you list it at $175,000, $185,000, yeah, you're going to get a ton of interest. And when we're doing our analysis and our research to determine what that value is, most likely that value is going to come in at that $200 price point. But when a house is, say, listed at $185,000, what we see in the market is maybe offers that are $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, sometimes $5,000 over asking price. And if you were to start at that, say, $180 price point, and you get an offer of $185,000, that agent looks like a hero. Oh my gosh, you sold it for over asking price in less than 24 hours. Beware, because if you would have potentially listed that at $199,000, $200,000, you might have gotten $195,000, $200,000 versus the $185,000.
Right.
So there's a value of what a seller is willing to accept and a buyer is willing to pay, and you want to be towards the upper part of that so you can maximize the amount of money that you leave the closing table with.
And I just had last week an appraisal, and the sale price was around the $240,000 price point, and the appraisal came in $16,000 above the purchase price, which we're typically not seeing now. We're seeing appraisals basically coming in at purchase price because they're trying to support the purchase price, and we're seeing more appraisals coming in lower. But that shocked me to have an appraisal come in $16,000 above the purchase price.
It was funny. I had a conversation with one of my buyers with one particular agent, and it was a day on the market, multiple offers. We ended up offering, I think, actually at or just above asking price for that one. We got the house, and the buyer was a little bit concerned. His first-time home buyer, very nervous about offering above asking price. And I said, you know what? You have to trust me. Here's the comparables, and I showed them the different comparable properties, and still they had a hard time with it.
Oh yeah.
Well, then a week later, a house came on the market $15,000 higher. That was identical to it. So they're like,
so now he's happy.
Oh my gosh, we got a deal on this. And I said, you're right, you did, and that's what this agent does. So it's beware. You want to maximize your value. So do research. Don't just go with the names that you see all the time, but really evaluate and ask for some opinions.
So I'm the seller of a house. There are dinky little projects around the house that I just don't want to care for. And we sold a house one time where the walls could have stowed a coat of paint. And I turned to the real estate agent and said, well, we're not going to paint them. Let that person decide what their paint color is going to be. And she said, oh, no. You go neutral. You paint them now. You clean them up. And sure enough, it had that.
Right.
That those little projects that look like that really do pay off in the end, don't they?
Absolutely. And you really have to be careful about evaluating a house. I recently was out in the Montrose area. doing a market analysis and an equity analysis for a particular person who's taking over their mom's house because she's getting ready to go to a nursing home. And this house had a substantial amount of work that needed to be done. Mm-hmm. The guy would have to invest over $50,000 to get it to a point where a buyer would walk in and would be blown away. And my recommendation for him was to sell it as is, because they didn't have the funds or the ability to do that, nor the desire to want to do that. So every situation is going to be a little bit different, but in most cases what we see is there are little projects that you can do to maximize value. Like you had alluded to, going neutral paint tones. If you've got a bright blue or a bright pink, bedroom, let's throw a coat of paint over that.
But that's the simple things versus the big things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I've heard of people that they just don't like to clean, so they hire a cleaning company to come in, clean the entire house, scrub it inside, top to bottom, and that made a world of difference.
Yeah, it's like detailing a car.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That and a good carpet cleaning, and it looks fresh.
Well, we need to take another break, folks. We're going to be back. You're listening to Real Estate Radio on Bob FM.
The Borden Real Estate Team with TCI Realty of Minnesota is here to help you make the right decisions when buying or selling a home. With over 25 years of combined real estate experience, they have the expertise and knowledge to help you achieve success through your real estate journey. Jamie and Cassie believe strongly in making a difference through educating and giving back to their community. For a professional evaluation of your situation, contact them today at www.teamborden.com. That's www.teamborden.com.
When it comes to home mortgages, you have a lot of choices. Make the right choice and contact Steve Rice at Marketplace Home Mortgage. Steve has over 25 years experience in the lending industry and provides his clients with all types of loan options to give them the best value every time. Marketplace Home Mortgage is the actual lender, and they are local, so they'll originate, underwrite, and close your loan in-house. No hassling around with out-of-state lenders. Find Steve online at www.steverice.net. That's steverice.net.
We are back, Real Estate Radio on Bob FM. We're talking about some of the no-nos if you are selling your home. One of the no-nos is don't let Uncle Robert be on the couch when the house is being shown downstairs.
With his pants
with
unzipped,
his-
Oh,
hands
boy.
in the waistband. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
Jody was looking for a house, we were looking at a house on Orono Lake out in Elk River. Mm-hmm. We went downstairs, and the real estate agent said, "Oh, by the way, he works nights, and he's sleeping on the couch."
Yeah.
That was an image I can't scrub out of my head.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. That's
Because it's weird enough going into somebody's house
Yeah.
when they're not there.
Yeah.
At least for me, if I'm walking around and then going in somebody's bedroom and looking in their closet, that's just an odd feeling.
So that brings us over to the general overriding conversation of showing the house.
right.
And especially availability of showing the house. If you want people to buy your house, they have to get into your house.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the limited amount of inventory that's out there, when we're working with buyers and we're setting up showings to show those buyers some homes, that buyer's got a window. I've got available window of time that we can go see that. And so once the buyer and I have agreed upon a specific time that we can go see that house, a lot of times we'll have several houses that we're lining up back to back to back. Well, if we go to click on a house and say we want to show it from some 2 to 3 o'clock, and the seller is unwilling to show it at that time, a lot of times what will happen is we'll look at the other available properties, and because of the lack of inventory, if any one of those is a good house, the buyer will generally make an offer on that house.
Yeah.
So you essentially just missed out on the opportunity as a seller
Right.
to have my buyer buy your house. So there are some times where we have showing requests, and a note comes back saying, well, the seller is only available to show it Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 2 to 4. And I'm sorry, my buyer gets off work at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to see that house.
Your house just comes straight off the market for them.
Right. So
Yep,
you
it gets shuffled to the back, and they don't see it. And but I think Jamie, there are other things too that when we think about what happens during a showing, that's important for you, the listener, to consider if you have your home on the market or are considering putting it on the market and have decided to opt out of listing with the Borden Real Estate Team. So if you're not listing with them, what you have to consider is the time that we want to get in and see the property, what the condition is on the inside,
Yep.
what it smells like. You know,
Yeah.
Oh boy!
the-
Oh man, we could do a whole program on the smell.
smell is absolutely it,
Oh
though.
my goodness!
You know, I still hear about people that even in a market like this will bake cookies with the with the idea of showing somebody that comfort, that warmness,
Right,
that homey feeling, as opposed to they just left the cigar burning in the ashtray, or the cat just decides that
Bread machines work wonders
Yeah,
too.
yeah, bread
the
machines
wet
too.
Irish setter smell that
Yeah,
always
right?
attracts people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why people sabotage themselves a lot. Between cigarette smoke, a messy house, somebody, Uncle Robert staying on the couch.
Yeah.
Get out, make it, open the windows, make it lively, make it smell good, make sure the toilet seat's down, please and thank you.
Yes. My wife will thank you for that one, Nick.
Now, our time is just ripping on by, guys. I wanted one more thing to do for sure. Taking pictures, the photographs.
So incredibly important. Our job first and foremost is to present a property online to get people to come to the door. We need to get people in the door, and that's where they fall in love with the house. And I've seen so many agents that will use their cell phone, their camera phone, because they're up with technology, right? They're taking pictures with their camera phones, and I've seen several listings where they're in the pictures half the time. It's like, are we doing portraits here,
Yeah.
or what?
Or the car in a driveway,
Or-
and the trash can.
Or the house that hasn't been well kept.
Yeah.
And you're saying, why would they take that picture with that guy's underwear hanging over the sink?
I love that you're saying that, though. Is I do a lot of teaching and training of real estate agents throughout the metro and in other parts of the country, and I always say, if you want to be a photographer, then be a photographer. Go out and photograph things. If you want to be a real estate agent, hire a photographer.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
The pictures, the colored, the lighting difference, the things that they see in I think it's funny. I saw one just the other day of a guy with his cell phone and he was taking a picture of the bathroom, but the bathrooms are always very small, so all you can see in the mirror is his arm and his phone in the picture, and it's like, no, that wasn't. You missed the mark on that. So if
the important thing is that going to draw people to the house.
Yes.
It's not.
No.
And then making sure that it's the right size to be on the internet.
Right.
Because
Right. 'Cause
that's the
that-
technical piece that I don't know, but I hear different sizes and the way it compresses and
Maximizing the pixels. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, we've got to close our program, but I want to say this about the Borden Agency. They have sold 100% of their listings in 2015 and 2016.
awesome.
Yes, we've
pretty darn good track record.
Folks, that's a good track record. That's why they're on Bob FM, and that's why we bring them to you weekend after weekend to say, if you want somebody who knows what they're doing, we've got 3 guys in the studios that know what they're doing. How do we get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to mybobcountry.com and click on the Weekends tab and go to Real Estate Radio, or they can find us at Real Estate Radio on Facebook.
Okay, give it again.
mybobcountry.com, Weekends tab, Real Estate Radio, or you can check us out on Facebook at Real Estate Radio.
All right, folks, we got to say adios.
Adios.
Adios. Have a great
It's
weekend.
going to be a great weekend. Enjoy.
All right, join us next week for Real Estate Radio on Bob FM.